So, a bunch of teenagers apparently tried to summon me, but since I had no idea what they were doing, they kinda botched the spell, and now I'm stuck in between hell and earth. So, while I wait for this to wear off, how about I tell you guys a story about a Game Boy game I enjoy, a Game Boy Advance game. The Game Boy Advance was released in Japan on March 21st, 2001. And one of its launch titles was a little gem called Megaman Battle Network. It wouldn't be released to the United States until later that year. I've always loved Mega Man, but I never heard of the Battle Network series until 2 years after its release in 2003. I was on the school bus playing Pokemon, and a kid asked me if I wanted to trade my Pokemon for his Battle Network. And since I've already beaten Pokemon several times, I thought, yeah, why not? I was familiar with how Mega Man games were played, but this one was completely different. For starters, you don't initially play as Mega Man. Instead, you're an 11-year-old boy named Lan Hikari, Hikari being light in Japanese. So you think, oh, is this a relative of Dr. Light? And spoiler, yeah, it's his grandson. The Battle Network series takes place in an alternate timeline, where Dr. Light decided not to dabble with robots, but instead focused on computers and programs, resulting in a world where almost everything is run by the internet. But of course, that leads to its own set of problems. You see, viruses in this world are much more prevalent, and they can cause a lot more damage than somebody simply locking you out of your computer. So, how do you deal with viruses? Well, you get your trusty NetNavi. What's a NetNavi? They're pretty much computer programs that double as a companion that you can take with you via your PET, which is a personal terminal. It's pretty much your NetNavi's home. Think of it like a Neopet, except more advanced. The PET can also be used to send your Navi into the internet or other appliances, as well as sending them battle chips, which, I'll get into that later. But if you haven't guessed yet, then Lan's NetNavi is Mega Man. Mega Man Land's dynamic feels more brotherly than master-servant, Mega Man being the older brother pushing Lan to be better. The main cast of this game consists of Lan, his childhood friend Meilu, who controls Roll, a short girl with a receding hairline, Yai, who controls Glide, who I'm pretty sure is an OC to this game, and the big oaf Dex, who controls... The battle system is different too. It's a 3x3 grid where you can only move on your 9 squares. You still have your Buster, but it starts out very weak, slow, and can't charge. Your main source of damage will actually come from the battle chips, so it's almost like a card game. You'll start out with 5 chips, which will each have a letter. You can select multiple of the same chip, or multiple of the same letter. So for example, if you have 3 cannons, different letters, you can still select all 3. Or, if you have 3 completely different chips, but they have the same letter, you could do that too. Take your chips and go into battle. If you wind up using your chips, but don't kill the enemy, don't worry, keep an eye on the top meter. Once it's filled, you can go back to the chip menu, and you'll have a whole new set of chips to choose from. If you're not happy with the chips you have, you can always just wait a turn and get an additional 5 to choose from the following turn. You can do this up to 2 times. After that, it'll reset back to the 5. You can use your Buster to whittle down enemies, but like I said, it starts out weak. As you progress through the game, you'll find many more unique chips, be it from defeating enemies, buying them, or just finding them laying around. When constructing your chip deck, keep in mind you can only have 30 chips in your deck. There are different types of chips. Some heal, some steal your opponent's area, giving you more space to move around while giving them less. But the most important chip, sadly, is the escape chip. Yeah, sadly there's no way to run away from battles, except for that escape chip. And they only start you off with 1, and they're not easy to get. By the time I beat the game, I only had 4, and random encounters happen way too often. There isn't exactly a leveling system, but you can increase your HP and your power. As you progress through the game, you'll find merchants or random gems on the ground that are either HP memories or power-ups. An HP memory will increase your HP by 20, and a power-up will let you upgrade your Buster in one of the slots, being Power, Speed, or Charge. But what's the plot to this story? Well, like most Mega Man games, Dr. Wily, or Dr. Wowie, is the antagonist, and he has a cyber-terrorist group called World 3, or WWW. He holds a grudge on Lan's grandfather, Dr. Hikari. You know, much like his alternate timeline counterpart, he actually did dabble in robots, but when it came time for the government to decide what would benefit mankind more, they chose Dr. Light with his computers, and had Wily's research shut down. Now he plans to create the life virus to delete the world. Unlike other Mega Man games, we don't face off against robot masters. Instead, we get a villain of the week scenario, where a WWW, or World 3 operative, causes some kind of Saturday morning cartoon hijinks to cause panic and chaos. While their overall goal is to find all the elemental programs to complete the life virus, they use the chaos as a distraction. The game is split up into a formula, just like a Saturday morning cartoon. Generally, Lan needs to do something somewhere, and along the way a World 3 operative is causing havoc, so he has to deal with the problem. Each dungeon has a theme based off the enemy NetNavi and its operator, and will require Lan to solve puzzles in both the outside world and inside the internet with Mega Man, since things happening on the outside can affect what's going on inside the internet. The first villain you'll come across is Mr. Match and his NetNavi Fireman. He's been posing as a safety inspector and deactivating people's home security systems so he can hack into the ovens in order to find the fire program. His dungeon involves putting out fires. It's short and simple, as a first dungeon should be. It does a good job to show you that this game will have puzzles. In this case, you have to locate a program to put the fires out, but the catch is, there's a limited use to it, and if you put out the wrong fires, then you're gonna have to go back, get the program, and start over again until you get the puzzle correct. The first dungeon is pretty quick and to the point. You'll go through, put out the fires, and eventually face Fireman, and although you ultimately defeat him, Mr. Match gets away with the fire program. Usually after every story plot, you're given a chance to go explore the internet if you like, but you're pretty much blocked off from a lot of areas early on. In order to access most areas, you need to have the people's address. You can only get them by finding them in the real world, which they're usually given to you after beating them in a net battle, but if they don't give it to you, you can go into their personal computer and just find it there. Finding these addresses are important, as it gives you access to other parts of the internet, as well as becoming a shortcut so you don't have to start from the beginning every time. However, you can only access it via their computer, so it almost feels pointless, especially since you need to locate it in the internet before you can actually use it anyway. The next villain is Higsby. He's one of my favorite characters. He's just a nerd who loves collecting rare chips. So, kinda like me, except with cards. Sadly though, this causes him to sell out to World 3. His plot involves joining the school as a teacher assistant. Then he hacks the school system to make all the blackboards play an indoctrination program, and by locking the school down, this dungeon gimmick is passwords. You have to figure out the passwords, which will have Lan running around the school looking for the answers, but you finally catch up to him and face down Number Man. And after being defeated, Higsby realizes he was a fool for selling out and wants to atone. And apparently he just gets a slap on the wrist because a bit later, he opens up a store in town. And this store is where you can buy rare chips and other fun things. It's actually got something very useful, because if you want to complete the chip catalog, you could do it the hard way, or there's a way to cheese it. See, they got a chip trader, and you could just save the game right at the chip trader, insert some chips, and if you get what you want, great. If not, restart and try again. It's a really great way to complete the chip catalog. And there's going to be a point in the game where you need to have a certain amount of chips to continue, so this is a godsend. So about after a month since the Higsby incident, we're walking to school and we realize, oh, the town has no water. Well, that causes classes to get canceled, and we're going to go investigate. This is where we get to meet Shad and his NetNavi Proto-Man. He's a professional net battler, which pretty much means he's kind of like an FBI agent, but for net crimes. He can delete anybody's NetNavi if he deems them a threat, and there's no repercussions. So after what feels like an eternity of running around, we finally get to start the dungeon. And it is one of the worst. So of course, it's a water and ice level. The puzzle involves sliding on the blocks of ice, turning water faucets on and off. It doesn't sound that bad, but trust me, it is. If you miss the angle on the ice, it slips you off and you gotta run all the way back and try it again. It's honestly just faster to save the game and reset if you mess up. So you get to the end and something feels off. It's just a normal virus causing an issue. So you deal with it, and you get the water running. Mission accomplished, right? No, of course not. While you did get the water running, it's been polluted. So guess what? You're going back to the dungeon, because there's a second part. And it's even more annoying than the first. So the one responsible is actually being blackmailed by World 3. Turns out they kidnapped his son. But despite having already rescued the son, and Proto Man beating him, we still have to take down Iceman. Because of course we do. While we melt Iceman, the true bad guys have already taken the water program, and now they have 2 of the 4. I should mention that this game takes place in 4 key areas: AC/DC Town, the Government Complex, Den Town, and Wily's Island. You can travel to each location freely using the Metro. However, these areas don't open up for the first time until the plot decides it's needed. And the plot has now decided it's time to send us off to the worst area in the game. And because it's Yai's birthday, and Meilu wants to get her a present, we're off to Den Town. Now, I'll be honest, this place might not be so bad for other people, but for me, it is a nightmare, because I get lost easily. And this area is split up into a bunch of smaller areas that all look pretty much the same. You need to wait for the lights to change before you can even cross the streets, and if you're like me and can't remember which area leads to the next, then you're gonna waste a lot of time waiting to cross only to realize you went the wrong way. Now there are some staircases that you can cross to the other side, but they're not on every street. This, however, leads us to the next plot point. We realize the traffic lights are acting up, and apparently all the cars in this world are made by Tesla, because the autopilot is always in control, and apparently they didn't prepare for this, so all the cars are crashing and exploding on impact, killing everyone inside. It turns out World 3 is in need of money, so they created this virus and created a remedy for it, and they're selling it to the people for 1 million zenny. Now, World 3 at this point is well aware that Land's been meddling in their plans, so they're ahead of the game this time. See, Meilu's on one of the buses, and they have that bus set to explode if he doesn't stop it on time. So this dungeon is actually split up into multiple sections, but luckily it's far easier than the last dungeon. It's just a game of red light, green light. You just keep running down the path, hitting the orbs, until you get the right path. Short, sweet, simple. And despite failing to stop the bus on time, it doesn't actually blow up, because apparently Roll was able to stall for time. This gives us enough time to jack in, face Color Man, and make the clown bow out. So, somewhere between then and now, Wily managed to get his hands on the 3rd elemental program. And that's not good because we're about to hit the penultimate plot. And this one's a real heart-pounder. So, the plot involves Land's father. He invites him and his mom to his job for a special dinner banquet. But of course, the final World 3 operative is already there, that being Count Zap. His plot is to cut the power, which shuts the air vents, which will eventually cause people to suffocate. The dungeon, though. Oh, the dungeon. Well, up to this point, anytime after battle, you fully heal. Because there's no power, your PETS battery, it can run out. So at a certain point after battle, you won't fully heal. And if the battery reaches 0, Megaman will die. The puzzles are incredibly long and tedious. You have to travel through 4 different areas, walking across invisible floors, find the correct program to give you batteries, then use the batteries to light up the path. And I'm not actually sure if there's a way to tell, it's just trial and error. And after 2 attempts, you need to get new batteries. So it's a lot of backtracking, all while that battery life depletes. I got to the final area and my battery died, and got royally pissed. But as it turns out, that part was just kind of a scare, because some guy will give you a generator to recharge your battery, so you were never actually in real danger. But even so, the puzzle is just way too long, way too tedious. It wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for the random encounters. They pop up every few steps. But we've come this far and we're going all the way. We reach Electric Man, but we can't defeat him because he can heal. So on the outside, we need to cut the power to give us a fair fight. Pull the plug on Electric Man? However, not before he's able to send the final program to Wily. But before we can take a breath, Proto Man shows up, and he is not happy. Apparently, we've been making his job harder, and he's decided we need to be deleted. You don't even get a chance to save, it's 2 boss battles in a row. Proto Man's not easy either. You can't just fight him with your buster, you have to counterattack him. Any attack you do, he will block. You have to wait until he's ready to attack you, get off an attack, and then dodge. His sword attacks can take a chunk of your health. He could kill you in as little as 2 or 3 shots if you're not well prepared. So after all that, we're finally at the endgame. Almost. Before that, it's time for some padding, because there's a lot of things you have to do before you can officially go to Wily's lab. So first, you need to travel through the internet, and you gotta find the World 3 server. But it's protected by passwords. To get the passwords, you have to find 3 World 3 operatives. Higsby is one of them, but you gotta find the other 2. For them to even talk to you, you have to be a high enough level and have enough unique battle chips. I said there was no level before, but there kind of is. See, every time you get an HP memory, or a power-up, it boosts his overall level. And personally, I think this kind of takes a lot of the fun away. Like, what if I wanted to go out there, face the final boss with the base buster or the base HP? Well, you can't, because it's locked behind a padded requirement. So after finding the other operatives, getting the passwords, and going through the server, you have to fight Bomb Man. And after all of that, he self-destructs with the info that you needed. Luckily, you were able to get a piece of data, and your father is able to figure out exactly where the coordinates to Wily's lab is. But of course, the train doesn't run there, so you have to find the secret train station, and you need to have a pass to get to the island. Now, of course, you can get the pass from Higsby, but of course it's expired. Find the train station, take the pass to your father to change the expiration date, and it's finally off to the endgame. Now, why they had to do that whole situation with the pass expiring, it's just padding. It didn't need to be done. But here we are, Wily's Island. And you're basically going through mini versions of the dungeons you've faced before. But with the tedious parts cut out, luckily. Get to the end of each segment, and one of your friends shows up to lend a hand. And after reaching the final area, you run into Rolf, who's there to lend a hand. However, Wily's right-hand man Yahoot shows up to stop you. Now, Magic Man's not too difficult to beat, but before you can land the killing blow, Wily sends over a bit of the life iris to power him up, which ultimately leads him to destroying Megaman. But before he could land the killing blow on Megaman, Proto Man shows up and steals the show, and decimates Magic Man. However, Megaman's fading fast, and there seems to be no way to save him. But of course, we get an emergency phone call from Dad, sending a program over that will save and make him even stronger. But it will come at a cost. It's then revealed to us that Megaman was Lan's twin brother, Hub, who had died due to a heart problem. But Dr. Hikari wanted to keep his memory alive, and used his DNA to to make the first truly thinking and feeling NetNavi. Megaman had always known this, but didn't want Lan to know. By using this program, both Megaman and Lan would be 100% in sync, which is a double-edged sword. While it would make them stronger, Lan would feel the same damage that Megaman would feel, and vice versa. Regardless, Lan accepts, and Megaman is back to life, stronger than ever. Now it's off to take on Wily. At this point, it should be noted that you cannot save the game, so at any point when you die, you'll have to fight Magic Man again, but you can skip the cutscenes. Anyway, run in, confront Wily. He gives his big speech about why he's doing this, and how he's going to destroy the world. Lan jacks in, and he's off to face the life virus. There isn't exactly a dungeon, it's just a long hallway. You can still encounter random viruses along the way. You can still die. Your buster's all powered up, so there should be no problems. You finally confront the life virus, and he's actually not that hard. He has a barrier that won't go down unless you can do at least 100 damage to it, but it comes back after a minute anyway, so it's better to wait for him to put the barrier down by himself. Somewhere in between, he'll summon these two little elemental viruses that you want to take care of as soon as possible, because they will prove a threat if left unchecked. With a little patience, you'll eventually destroy it, and surprisingly, there is no second phase to this fight. So that's it then. The lab explodes, presumably with Wily still inside, and all of our heroes escape. They all reconvene back at Lan's house, yuck it up, and the credits roll. There is a post-game, but it's nothing special. You just explore deeper in the internet, face off against a few more NetNavis, collect all the chips, and once you've gotten them all, you can face Bass, who drops the Life Aura chip. Which is the best chip in the game, but at this point you've already done it all, so who cares? I guess if you wanted to PvP with your friends, that's one thing, but nowadays that's just kinda useless. So that's Megaman Battle Network 1. It's honestly not as great as I remembered it, but it was still a fun nostalgic trip. My only main complaints were how often the random encounters were. They really just need to make an escape option rather than it being a chip. I also think they could have handled the home pages better. Maybe set up an option where, from Lan's computer, you can just access a teleporter from there, rather than having to go over to their computer. It just kind of makes the whole point feel moot. There's also just a bit too much padding and backtracking. The story seems to wrap up nicely. It easily could have just been a standalone game, but they made 5 more. Well, kind of, but we'll get into those eventually. Next time, we'll be looking at Megaman Battle Network 2. Hopefully I have a physical body by then. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy what you saw. If you did, please consider hitting the bell and giving me a thumbs up.